authors who influence. But when there's not an interview, there will be podcast episodes that's empowering, inspiring, educating, and giving you tips on how to establish yourself as a self-published author or just a re-establishing author. You just want to just get back out there. Oh, FYI, and also this podcast, we will talk about different genres. On some episodes, you will hear storytelling at the beginning of an episode, and then it would lead into the topic of the podcast for that day. And you will purposely hear mixed up words, and my comma might be at the end, or my period should be might be in the beginning of a sentence, or a question mark somewhere, exclamation point, and that will be purposely done based on the storytelling, based on what I'm talking about, based on the topic for that episode. So, Authors Who Influence is all about authorship. And authorship is not only just for an author who write books. An authorship is someone that owns a business, someone that's on a journey and have a mission that's being the author of their journey. That's what Authors Who Influence is it's about. And you can put different perspective into Authors Who Influence episodes. So let's deal with the topic for today. And we're going to deal with three barriers, but today we're only going to deal with one. So, how to overcome the thought of people not reading my book as a self published author. How to overcome the thought of if would anyone ever read my book because I'm a self published author? How to overcome that thought? And the first thing I would like to question you, and a lot of times we back up or get intimidated or we begin to shut down if someone asks you why. But if we rephrase the question and say how come you feel a certain way, how come you're thinking it, it becomes less intimidating and people begin to let their guard down. Because the word why sometimes in conversations, it can be very bold. It appear bold to the person you're talking to, and that person might get offended. And I don't know why it's like that, but somehow text begin to have its own expression and meaning according to what the recipient takes from it, according to their perception and how they want to put what you're saying or asking into their own meaning. So, I would like to ask you, why do you think that no one would ever read your book because you're a self published author? Now, this question is for even self published authors who already self published their books, because I know your book probably is sitting and collecting dust. And that is for some of you out there. And if it's not collecting dust and you're promoting your book, but you're not increasing in sales like you would desire, or if you just playing around with a thought in your head, I'm going to write a book one day, I'm going to write a book one day, but will someone ever read it? And there may not be something that you're there may not be something that you're saying to yourself, but that's something that you're probably thinking in your head and you're not expressing that to anyone. And you want to deal with that thought, but you don't know who you can talk to about it. So today's podcast, get my words out. Today's podcast is going to deal with why do you think that no one would ever read your book because you're a self published author? I like to say that being a self published author is the most powerful thing that you can ever be. I guess I would say be because you're the published author. You're the self published author because it becomes limitless to create and chart your audience in different parameters of this world, and you can be very, very creative with it. So, why do you think that no one would ever read your book? Okay, So you're listening to me on the other end. Now I'm going to give you thoughts that you might be thinking. And then all you can do is just say, agree with it. And then the most effective way that people begin to overcome any type of barriers is through related, related understanding or related common sense to what that person can relate to, if that makes sense to you. So here are some thoughts that you might be thinking. And when I say you all over the world, that's so many people may be dealing with the same barrier that you're dealing with. And how we overcome is by the agreement to what we can understand, to the level of our understanding until we get to the next level. So, some thoughts you might be thinking. The words in your book, your content, rather say, may not be strong enough. You feel like you may be using more simple words than more intelligent, um, defined words. You probably thinking that someone would not read your book because someone has already written about the topic that you're writing about. You might think that someone will not read your book because no one knows you. And you might not have a lot of followers or people liking your post on social media, and that's how you're marketing. You might be thinking someone will not read your book because there's already books based on the genre you're writing about. Let me tell you, we're going to stop right there and we're going to deal with these thoughts for now. Let me tell you this is that there is a charted audience, a population that's waiting to hear for what you have to say in the writing that flows within you. Somebody's ready to pick up your book or read it on their phone as an ebook. The reason why I can tell you this is that no matter what someone has already written related to what you want to write, the content what you want to write, there's always a connection across the world for the content and for the spirit behind your book. You become your book, you become your market. Your book is like a business, and that's based on the spirit you put into the content. The reason why you can find the same people read the same type of genre with related content is because they can relate. And every book has different levels of understanding, every book has different levels of experience. When I say experience, I am talking about different levels of what the individual experienced, testimonials in the book to the extent of whatever the book is about. So never doubt that someone would not read your book because your book is needed. You need to be heard. Your book is a deliverance for other people to read. It's a deliverance for yourself first. And when you don't write, especially if it's in you to write a book, when you don't write your book, guess what happens? You become constipated. Everything around you in your life begin to become constipated. It's like it's a pause on certain things, and then you can't move forward to the next thing because you haven't delivered the first book. And why am I saying it this way? That's because this world is created by text. What you have to say, your meaning behind it, in the title of your book, the chapters of your book, the definition and how you define your content in your book and how you deliver it is needed. There's so many people, millions of people. This is a big world. Millions of people is waiting to hear from you, from your book, from the content of your book. Your readers will know you as an author by the content of your book. They first know you as an author by the content of your book before they may know your name. And when I say know your name, I'm saying before they can relate to your who you are, what people call you by your biological name. Because books put people in a trance, no matter the genre. If it's something that someone likes to read, if it's satire, if it's, I'm saying that wrong word, if it's satire, nonfiction, fiction, self help, drama, action, thriller, romance, there's always a kindred spirit is waiting to relate to what you have to say. So let this be the day that you get over what what anyone ever read my book. Yes, the answer is yes. If you had the right mindset, you can get everyone to read your book. Everyone who you market and brand yourself to. There's so many brand evangelists around here. So why not take that barrier from off your thoughts and start to write? Finish the book, complete the book, put the story together. And if the story is broken down into pieces where the beginning comes last and the ending comes first, or the middle of the story, you don't know where to find it from. It's okay. Just write down every thought that comes to your mind pertaining to that chapter of the book. Make sure your content fits one chapter, because sometimes when you're a writer, and sometimes different chapters will come out of you when you're writing about one book, and you have to know how to separate that, because you don't want too many words, you don't want too much saying to be in one book, depending on what the book is about. If it's a novel, if it's a self-help book, motivational book, you don't want to have too many words in one book. Sometimes you have to feed people a little bit at a time. You can break down a novel into a series. You can break down any book into a series. I know some people like to write hundreds of pages. It's okay. If you're suited for that and that's your way, yes, go for it. But depending on who you are and the type of book you write as a self published author will depend on how many words should be in that particular book based on the title and the chapters in your book. Sometimes the story may end at 100 pages, it may end at 50 pages. Okay, so what? You don't have to have a lot of pages in your book. And guess what? You can price it at whatever price you want to, because the content in your book comes with the price, especially if you're writing about experience. That experience can be business, personal experience, life experience. That experience, it can be anything. You put a price on the content on your book, and don't doubt the price. It doesn't matter if it's an ebook or a physical book that you can hold in your hand. If the spirit of the book, you know who you are and you know the content you put in your book, you believe in it, you can put a price on it. And millions of people will purchase it. Millions of people. So, with that being said, let's take down the thoughts of, would anyone ever read my book? After this episode, never ever think that thought again. Because the many times that you thought that, that is the many times that you have to replace it with a positive habit, with something that's uplifting and empowering, and something that's going to weed that thought out your experience of your mind, out of your emotions, and empower you to move forward to complete your story. So let's take off the limitations because being a self published author, it is limited to what you can create and to how much money you can create from your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
More information